So, whoops, I guess we are being recorded. Okay. So, I grew up as
Wait,
one.
wait, I'm so sorry. Hold on. Let me
It's
make sure
okay.
first. Are you not wanting to record, Lori? I apologize.
No, 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 I'm fine.
So yes.
Yes.
Okay, you guys, just so you know, we will be capturing the video and audio. So you'll want to turn your camera off if you don't want to be caught on camera, or leave the meeting now. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Desma.
Yeah, we'll stop recording when the speaker's finished for the share portion.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, all right. So I grew up as one of four kids in kind of a Catholic family. I mean, we weren't the type of Catholics that, we did go to church every Sunday, but blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter. I thought I grew up in a normal household. Had a mom, dad, the siblings, the whole nine yards. But my dad was a drinker. He was very much a drinker. My mother was the kind of person where she didn't drink a lot, but if she knew that you had anything emotional going on, she would say, "Oh, don't feel that way. Here's a pill, take this pill." So, okay. So I guess, normal for me was growing up to learn to drink and learn to take pills or substances or whatever to make myself feel better. I'm going to look at my notes just so that you know. So, yeah, so that's what my mom did. Let's see. My dad would yeah, this was kind of funny to me. He would always offer you a shot of brandy if you had like cramps or something, instead of saying, "Oh, let's get you some Midol or whatever," he'd say, "Oh, here, take a shot of brandy." So, I guess that was normal. I mean, we all grew up thinking it was funny to mix a hot toddy or whatever for a cold. So I guess, it just became a normal thing to drink and do drugs in my house. Um, I think I was about 13 the first time I got really drunk purposely. Before that, it had been accidental or that kind of thing. When I was about 17 years old, my dad came out of the closet. That was a really tough, traumatic time for me. I'm not sure exactly, I didn't know what to do. I mean, you figure I grew up in the 70s, so that was a time period where there was no internet, there was no cell phone, there was no nothing to kind of just reach out to. There was absolutely nothing like Signal or an online community that you could go to. So I just dealt with it. I tried to deal with it. It was really difficult because I knew nothing about that. We grew up was what I thought was normal, but that was a difficult time for me. I think I spent a year not speaking to my dad and being very caught up in my own head, but to move on, I met my then boyfriend at the time, who's now my ex-husband. But so I was about 19 when we got married, which was pretty darn young. I didn't. I did some drinking at that point. I didn't get all caught up in it. I think I was more into the emotional trauma that was happening around me. And but as time went on in this marriage, I recognized a lot of emotional abuse that was happening, and I started drinking more and more. But of course, I was a good, I hate to say Catholic, but that's kind of where it comes from. I think where you just don't you don't um you don't divorce somebody, you stick with them no matter what. And it took me a while to figure out that I needed to get away from this relationship. And I will say that the thing that really took me the longest time was figuring out how this was going to affect my kids. I mean, because I have three children with this man, so they're all adults now, and they all tell me now that, "Mom, you did the right thing no matter what." But it was a difficult thing at the time to get through. And after I went through the whole divorce process and got an apartment of my own for the first time, I was like, at 40 at that point. So I was like doing things that I never did before. So you want to talk about sowing wild oats? That's when I did it. I did a lot of drinking. I went back to smoking. I met my second husband at that point. We started doing a lot of cocaine together. Excuse me. I know there's a lot of triggers going on here. I'm sorry. But my drug of choice was always methamphetamine. And I guess I shouldn't say that, but that became my go-to after a while. Um, I did manage to put those things aside. You know, I always thought of myself as being this really upstanding person in society, you know, which is kind of a ridiculous thought process. And especially now that I think it through, it's like you're just a normal person, you know, just like everybody else that's an addict or that's not an addict. I mean, we all go through traumatic stuff, I guess, but it's just taken me a long time to get to that point, you know. Um, I can remember when I had my DUI, it was in 2007 in August, and I was mortified. I mean, I mean, I know I'm skipping over a lot of stuff, but I want to get to the kratom part. So I just want to tell you a little bit more about the alcohol. But the DUI is what really got me. That was in August. October is when I got sober. So it was another few months. But at that point, I was so afraid to drive because if I've been drinking, you know, how could I drive anywhere? And my daughter was about 13 at the time, and I'll never forget the night that she came down to me and said, "Mom, would you take me to a church youth group meeting?" And I had been drinking already, and I just thought, there's no way I can get behind the wheel of a car. I was, I don't know what, I can't even explain to you the feeling that I had at that point. I know I cried. I put down whatever I was drinking at the time, and I went upstairs, and after telling her, no, I couldn't drive you because I was drinking. Okay. And I called my girlfriend and I said, I need help. I can't do this anymore, you know, and that was when I finally got sober, and I was 49 years old. And I've been sober now for a little over 17 years. So yeah, that was my shot. People call it a God shot, whatever. You know, that was my shot. The universe said to me, "Look what you're doing," you know. And that blew me away. I mean, it took me a while to go back through all this stuff in my mind, and you know, I went through all my AA BS or whatever the steps, and that really helped me, believe it or not. It did really help me. And for 8 years I was good. I was immersed in that program. I was helping other people. I was living a good life. Like I can remember when I first got sober, my daughter was, again, like I said, she was 13, and she resented me wanting to be a mom all of a sudden because she took care of me for so much of that time period. And it was tough on her, but we got through it. And I told her, I said, I know that this is not easy for you, but you have to let me try to be the mom here, you know. It was a really weird period, but you know, so 8 years later, my mom passed away. And that was a rough time for me because my mom and I were always very close. We got even closer after my divorce, and you know, I could talk to her about anything. She was an awesome lady, and when she passed, it really, I think started to internalize the pain more. It was a tough period, and shortly after she passed, somebody introduced me to kratom. And I started taking it. Like, you know, if it was going to relieve my pain, I didn't realize that the pain was also as emotional as well as physical. But I started taking it. And I got to tell you, it was a good friend who introduced it to me. It was a powder form back then. This was almost 9 years, well, 9 years ago now, since I've been sober a year. But anyway, I got a new job. It helped me work. I thought it just, I didn't think about it for a few years. I mean, I just thought, wow, isn't this great? This wonderful natural substance that's really, um, helping me get through everything. This is wonderful. And then I wound up the same pain that I had. I wound up having a hip replaced, which is really odd. Did I think that I should get rid of the kratom? Hell no. It was like, I'm just going to continue with this. I took it while I was in the hospital. I took it when I came home. If I did nothing else, I did kratom. And little by little, I did more and more and more of it to where I think I was up to upwards of 80 grams per day, but still rationalizing it, thinking I was okay. I lost a ton of weight. And finally, my brother said to me, Lori, this stuff is really addictive. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's natural. It's a natural substance. And I didn't believe him for the longest time. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago where I finally thought about it as being a possibility that it was addictive. And little by little, that message took over in my brain. And it still took me a long time to get rid of. I mean, I was on it for another 3 years. I tried to bring it down, but I could only taper so far, and then that was it. I mean, I stuck with it. But then my hair started to fall out. I started to get what's called, I guess it's called the wobbles. I come to find out it's actually like a type of seizure. I didn't know that. A lot of things I found out after I got off of Kratom, like, shit, I had that going on. Oh my God, like what did I, what had I gotten into? But, and I think I was just so freaking mad at the beginning, because here I spent all this time working on being a sober person, and what happened, but I get stuck on kratom. And, I was just mad about it at first. Speaking of anger, I mean, that kratom rage, the crage, whatever you want to call it was nuts, especially towards the end. I remember just freaking out on people that I worked with, especially. And, I finally got to the point where I thought, the only way the last thing I was stuck with was the same, similar to the way alcohol was. I was stuck with that feeling of, what am I going to do about my children? In this case, it was, what am I going to do about work? I mean, I'm working still, that kind of thing. I enjoy my job, but I was really afraid to quit or the kratom, because I thought I couldn't deal with it. But I finally talked to my manager, who is also a good friend of mine. So she's actually the person who recommended me for this job. And she's a good friend. I mean, she's probably the first person I told about this, other than my brother knowing. And I told her what was going on. I said that I needed some help in getting off of this. And the only way I knew how to do it was to take some time off and, go to these meetings and do all this. I mean, I started coming to these meetings before I even quit Kratom, because I wanted to hear what was going on. And I see a lot of people doing that now. I think it's so smart. But anyway, I took the 2 weeks off. I picked a date. I mean, if nothing else, I'm a very diligent person, I guess, or determined, maybe, if that's the right word. Like, I knew that if I decided to quit, I was going to do it. It might have taken me longer than I wanted it to, but I knew I was going to do it. The quit was just as horrendous as everybody thinks it's going to be, or was. It was tough. I mean, I thought it was only going to last a couple of days, and my brother didn't say, oh, no, Lori, it's going to be a couple of weeks. But so I was glad he didn't tell me, because that might have, stopped me from wanting to stop this. So yeah, the first few days were rough. I had trouble breathing, walking up and down the steps, and I had to take my dog out. So, which is good, because it helped me to exercise. And those are the things that everybody in this group told me. Get some exercise, get out and do the things that you want to try to do. Like, I remember Martin being here when I first started and talking about the 3 M's. I remember Matt, I remember Decima, I remember Hillary, all you guys that were here and kept the seat warm for me, which was just the coolest thing ever. It took me a long time to share. It took me an even longer time to share my camera because I was afraid to do all that. And then it took me, I was probably, I wound up with some pretty, I don't know, palls, I guess, some extensive palls. It could be that I'm a little older than you guys. I don't know. But yeah, so the pause, I would get like 1 or 2 days feeling really good, and then 3 or 4 days feeling shitty, and then it'd be like, okay, I'm going to feel better again because I already felt good. So that's what was important. My hair stopped falling out. So towards the end of my Kratom use, I started like shaking, and I thought it was like, okay, this is something that's, runs in the family, but I don't shake anymore. I mean, the things that I thought were maybe my own body, doing, it wasn't. It was so much of it was Kratom related. I just can't even get over how much better I feel a year off of this garbage. I just can't even tell you. It still took me, so I quit in May, and in December, I had an issue that I wanted to share about, and I think this group was on a hiatus because the Dopey group was having a marathon. So I went to that marathon meeting. I shared what I was going to share, and it felt good to get it off my chest. And somebody there suggested that I host a meeting. And I thought to myself, well, I can't do that here because I go to, there is a way out and they need hosts. So that's, I think, the first time I reached out to Decima and I said, hey, I want to host. And she agreed with me. And so, yeah, I was about 7 months off of Kratom. So it took me a while. It all took some time, and that's okay, because that's all I got is time, right? I'm so happy to be sober again. I just can't even tell you how much it feels better to be on this side of everything. And here I thought I'd take up the whole half hour, and I've got almost 15 minutes left, but that's about all I want to share on my story.
Oh
Uh,
my
Ray,
gosh. Oh,
see those
sorry.
I'm just going to say, let's see those virtual claps. And tonight it is not my privilege. Thank you, Laura. I've asked Decima to do that officially on behalf of the group.
Man, I do feel quite privileged to have heard your story and to be the one to personally thank you. Because not just for being tonight's speaker, but also as a dear friend and incredible support in my own life. Oh my gosh. I've had the privilege of watching you grow so much in your recovery, stepping into your power, finding your voice. You become someone who lifts others up just by being yourself, Lori. Your strength and dedication continually inspire me personally, and I know I'm not alone in that. So thank you so much for sharing your story with such honesty and heart. Your journey is so powerful. It's a reminder of what's possible. The way you've transformed your pain into purpose is nothing short of inspiring. You've become a cornerstone in this community. You lead with compassion. You create space for others. You help shape the kind of support so many of us here need, especially the newcomers. We are so lucky to have you on the board. And as a host, and even luckier, I feel, just to walk alongside you, Lori. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I also wanted to say real quick to anyone who's new here tonight, I'm really sorry for what brought you here, but I'm so glad you found us. I hope hearing Lori's story is a reminder that healing is possible. You don't have to go through this alone. I hope her share did speak to you, and you can also find some more powerful stories like hers on our website, kratomquitters.com. You'll just click on speaker meetings and see all the past shares. But again, we're just so glad that you guys are here with us. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to tonight's host, Matt, who is also, by the way, another shining light in this community who continues to show up for others with heart and humility. Thank you so much, Matt. I hope that we're going to hear your story one day too.
Oh, shucks. Well, it just so happens I'm speaking next Tuesday, so you're getting your wish. And what was I going to say? Yes, so the rest of the meeting now will be open for discussion. Feel free to, if you have some words for Lori, if you're new and you don't know Lori and you don't have anything to say, but we definitely want to hear from any newcomers, so please don't be shy to put up